If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then Christianity is a mistake, a powerful story, a moral framework. But ultimately, false. Even the earliest Christians admitted this. So tonight, we're not asking if the resurrection is inspiring. We're asking something far more dangerous. Did it actually happen? Or was it the greatest lie ever told? When you hear about the empty tomb, what's the first explanation that comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's the simplest one. The body was stolen. Maybe it was grave robbers looking for valuables, or maybe the disciples themselves took it to start a new movement, a cover-up, right? It seems plausible on the surface. But let's dig a little deeper into that. Roman tombs, especially those of politically sensitive figures, weren't just left unguarded. They had professional soldiers stationed there. And for these soldiers, failure wasn't an option. The punishment for falling asleep on duty or losing a body was quite simply death. So they had every reason to make sure that tombs stayed sealed. Now, let's think about the disciples. These weren't cunning masterminds plotting a global deception. Just days before, they had scattered. They were hiding, terrified for their own lives. Peter, their supposed leader, denied even knowing Jesus 3 times. These were men who believed their world had ended. They were crushed, confused, and scared. Does that sound like a group of people ready to risk their lives to steal a body, overpower Roman guards, and then launch a worldwide campaign based on a lie they knew could get them killed? It just doesn't add up. Their transformation from frightened followers to bold proclaimers only makes sense if something truly changed them. Okay, so if it wasn't a theft, what about other explanations? Some people suggest it was a mass hallucination. Grief is powerful. It can make us see and hear things that aren't there. It's a valid point to consider. But hallucinations have some very specific characteristics. They are intensely personal, subjective experiences. What one person sees in a hallucination, another person right next to them won't. They don't happen to large groups of people all at once, seeing the same thing. The historical accounts say Jesus appeared to groups of people, sometimes up to 500 at a time. And hallucinations, no matter how vivid, don't have physical effects on the world. They can't roll away a heavy stone from a tomb. They can't make a body disappear. And crucially, a shared vision wouldn't convince terrified people to suddenly become martyrs. People don't willingly die for something they know is just a product of their grief-stricken minds. The empty tomb remains a stubborn fact that simple explanations struggle to account for. The sudden, unshakable courage of the disciples points to something more, something that turned their despair into a hope they were willing to die for. And then there's the detail historians find hardest to explain, even if you reject miracles. Ever wonder what really convinced Jesus' disciples that he rose from the dead? It wasn't just a casual belief. It was something that completely changed how they lived and died. Take Peter, for instance. This is the same guy who was so scared that he denied even knowing Jesus 3 times. Yet just a few weeks later, he's standing in front of massive crowds in Jerusalem, boldly proclaiming that Jesus is alive. What could cause such a dramatic U-turn? Then there's James, Jesus' own brother. The Gospels tell us he was a skeptic during Jesus' lifetime. But after the resurrection, he becomes a pillar of the early church, so convinced that he eventually dies for this belief. Something profound must have happened to transform these doubters and deniers into fearless martyrs. Their actions speak louder than words, pointing to an event that rewired their entire reality. Which leaves one uncomfortable reality most people try to avoid. Have you ever heard someone say the stories of Jesus' resurrection were just legends that grew over time, like a game of telephone? Well, let's look at what the evidence actually says. Many scholars, even non-Christian ones, date some of the earliest accounts to within mere months of Jesus' death. Not decades or generations later, but almost immediately. How do we know this? Through ancient creeds. These were short, powerful statements of belief that the first Christians memorized and passed on orally, long before they were written down in the New Testament. Think of it like a catchy slogan or a short poem that's easy to remember and share. This isn't the slow burn of legend development. This is the explosion of immediate, powerful conviction. It shows that from the very beginning, followers were proclaiming that Jesus was alive. Did you know there are a few core facts about Jesus that even skeptical non-Christian historians agree on? First, it's a historical fact that Jesus of Nazareth was crucified by the Romans. Second, his tomb was found empty just a few days later. Third, his followers, who had scattered in fear, suddenly began claiming they had seen him alive. These weren't just one-off sightings. They claimed he appeared to them multiple times, to individuals and large groups. And fourth, despite intense persecution, this small group of followers launched a movement that spread like wildfire across the Roman Empire. Now, historians might disagree on the explanation for these events, but the facts themselves are so well established that they demand an explanation. What do you think really happened that first Easter? It's a question that changed the world. This is the Watchman Record. Thank you for watching. Leave any comments below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.